suppose we had no choice. My father played for Mount Sion and Waterford for years, and I suppose when I was born in 1978, the father would have been playing probably 5 or 6 years for Waterford seniors at that stage, and they hadn't much success with the county team, but as a club team they were very successful at Mount Sion. It was just, I suppose we'd no choice just to play hurling, or we didn't want to play anything else, to be honest, Jim. We went to school in Mount Sion as well, so straight away you're told about the traditions and what went before you. So we only wanted to play hurling. Now at the time, you're talking about probably the 80s, Waterford weren't as good as they are now, or probably we hadn't the chance of winning All Irelands as we think we have now, or when I played. So, but we still, all we wanted to do was play hurling. We played all the sports, don't we? Played football, soccer, the whole lot. We're from Waterford City, so we played everything. But there was only one proper sport that we wanted to really go at, and that was hurling, you know. So no, we was the four brothers. We all played. All my friends played. I said Mount Sion School was huge influence on our kind of starting out on our careers and stuff, you know. So it was brilliant. And I suppose the first memory I'd say probably be a county final. I think I don't know what year it was. Mount Sion won a county final, and I remember being at that, and it's probably one of the first memories I have. I think I was at the '82 Munster final. Waterford got hammered by Cork, but I don't remember that at all. I was only 4. But I definitely remember 1986 county final. I think I was 8, and the lads Mount Sion bet Lismore up in the county final in Dungarvan. I remember that well because the father was playing and stuff, you know. So that would have been roughly one of the first earlier memories of the father playing. But I remember playing games probably in 6 and 7 up in Mount Sion and stuff. I do remember that all right, you know. So it's a long time ago now, I suppose, you know. Yeah, the biggest influence on my hurling career would have been, I suppose you'd a few people. Starting out would have been Brother Griffey was huge in Mount Sion. Brother Dowling was another brother in Mount Sion School. Were brilliant. Paddy Sheridan, unsung kind of heroes up in Mount Sion. Paddy Sheridan, all the boys, he would have given us all a game. He'd be pulling at his jumper looking for a match. You could be 4 years under the age, you want a game. But the biggest influence was my father. He was our hero growing up, and he didn't overburden us with what we had to do or what we needed to do growing up at all. He kind of left us off and left us play, but we would have hearing stories about how good he was and stuff. And I suppose it's before YouTube, and Waterford weren't after playing many games on telly even at that stage, you know. So it was hard to even look back and see even certain games he played. But everyone would keep on telling you, "Geez, your father was a great player, or your father this," and if he was only on a different team or that type of stuff, you know. But yeah, he was all the lads would say the same, our biggest influence. And as the game got more serious and stuff, he would give us a bit more knowledge on it and what to try and improve on. But he never was too hard on us, and he kind of left us off and left us kind of find our own way in the game, which looking back, it was brilliant. Now, if you play bad, he'd tell you. if you play good, he'd tell you. So he was fair. I remember on a 14 county final, or an Eastern final, Waterford split into East and West, and the East would be the city kind of side. And I think I was 13. I thought I played okay, and I said, "What do you think?" And he said, "You're only okay today." And that I was like, right, I have to show him for the county final and say little stuff like that, you know. And if he was at the match at all, he was trying to show that you were moving well. But no, I said brilliant influence on us, but didn't overpower us, overburden us with what we had to do, you know. Yeah, he was shocked. The father be quiet enough. When he heard, he was like, you know, like he'd be quite man. He wouldn't say too much. He never went into say trying to court publicity or anything like that outside a plane or even anything. He'd be quiet, and he's probably saying maybe he didn't think he expected it, but he was delighted, and we were all delighted for him because he was unlucky to. There was the team he came along were good in the 70s and 80s. There were some very good hurlers from Waterford on that, but they're probably unlucky. Didn't have a full 15, I suppose. And he was always on Munster teams when Railway Cup was big and All-Star trips. And he was unfortunate never to get an All-Star either. So he was unlucky in his career. And for him to get that, probably unexpectedly, was brilliant for him. And it shows the regard, I suppose, that the GAA people had for him. It was bittersweet for a bit for me. I was in hospital at the time. I was the only one of us that couldn't go up to Croke Park, and it was a tough. I remember that, very tough. But the lads, everyone had a great day. There was a few of the grandkids there, and there's a lot more grandkids came along since. But we've a great picture at home in the Mother and Father's house out Mall in Croke Park, and No, they had a great day, a really enjoyable day, and I know for a fact it was one of the best days out they all had. Or I said to you, he wasn't the one for blowing his own trumpet, but we were all delighted for him that day, obviously, So it was a great occasion. I would have played under 14 and stuff for the Tony Forrestal tournament. That would be my uncle. Tony Forrestal was married to my father's sister Betty. Yeah, so we would have having probably huge regard for that, and it was always based in Mount Sion starting off, and then it got bigger and bigger. So Tony Forrestal would have been my first time playing with Waterford. I suppose I was 13. I played 2 years of that, and under 16 and minor. We got the 3 minor Munster finals. Unfortunately, you had no second chance back then, and we had a good team, but Cork bet us twice, like Joe Dean and Sean O'Halpine, and these fellas bet us fairly well twice now. But and then I suppose as things developed, then it's 95, I'd say the league was split into two. You'd play a few games before Christmas and a few games after. And I was brought onto the panel in late 95. I would have been 17 or so. I just kind of brought along for a bit of experience. And we're playing Galway, I think, in the first game after Christmas, probably late February. And I was just sitting in the subs bench. I wasn't expected to come on at all. I didn't expect it. And after 2 or 3 minutes, Fergal Hartley twisted his ankle. And I was thrown on wing forward. And I got a shock of my life, to be honest with you. I didn't expect it at all. And I was going well at the time. I was having a good few years with the club. And I know I was tall enough for, I suppose, 17, 18 at the time. And things were progressing nice, but I still didn't expect to come on that day. I came on, I was marking Jerry McInerney, used to play with Galway. Player I would looking up to for years, Tony Keady, Peter Finnerty, McInerney. These lads, I was only young fella looking at them in All-Irelands for years, saying, geez, like there's some players love to be playing against them, or not even thinking that you'd ever be playing against them, So that was my first game. Galway bet us by only a couple of points, and we played well enough. And I remember I just ran around the place and I hit a few balls. I scored a point, I think, and that was the first game. That was my first league game. I think I was just gone 18, and then that was it really. And I played championship that year against Tip in Welsh Park in June. I played minor and 2 on and senior in 1 month. So that was the start of it then in 1996, and it all just kind of. Now at the time we were probably a million miles away where we ended up becoming, say, a top tier team or whatever. But the hurlers were always there, but did we believe it at the time? I'm not too sure, or did we have the setup right? But it was from say 96 to when I finished, say, in 2010. It was night and day really where we came from, what kind of levels we trained at, and where we kind of how long we lasted there, So it was mad, but it was brilliant time to kind of start, The first time I was in Croke Park, I think was 80 something. Waterford played Galway in the league semi-final. Late 80s, I think, and they got hammered actually, or Tip or Galway, I can't remember. They got 2 league semi-finals in a row, and for us it was huge because it was Division 1, and we were delighted, like bigger crowds than Waterford were used to going tonight. I had to think about crowds when I was young. I love if there was a big crowd in Waterford involved, because you were looking for that for years, So I remember going to a game. And I suppose I went to 91 Ireland final. I remember being at Croke Park for that. A family friend, Francie Thompson, he's from Tipperary, but he'd be a Mount Sion man. Used to bring myself, Roy, cousin Jamie, and his own kids off to the matches. It was brilliant. We went to the Munster final 91, the replay up in Thurles, that brilliant Cork, or Tip came back at a brilliant win against Cork. Aidan Ryan got a brilliant goal. We were at that. He brought us to the Ireland final. Like I remember them, I was only 13, but he brought us everywhere to them matches, and I think that was and then we went to 92 Ireland final. Waterford got to the minor final actually. Waterford played Galway in the minor Ireland final. We went to that Ireland final. That was probably the first couple of times I was up there, and it was the old Croke Park then, obviously, so it was a lot different to it is now. And I remember when we walked out on the pitch, I think after one of the matches, and it was the pitch was all over the place really. There was hollows, there was we were saying we'd love to be up here at some stage playing, So the first time I played there was 98. Then we played Galway in the Ireland quarter final. Clare after beating us in a replay Munster final. There was pulling and dragging and fighting and pulling in that game. It was kind of a famous game with Colin Lynch and Tony Brown and everything. And the following week we played Galway, and we bet them 120 to 10 points. I think we played brilliant our first time in Croke Park, and I remember coming out of Croke Park that day saying, "This is brilliant. This is where you want to be." at the time the new Cusack stand was built, it was massive. It was like, it felt like something out of a different world for hurlers at the time, if you remember, because we were used to Welsh Park and even Thurles. It was so far ahead of Thurles, you know, and Parky Heave and stuff. But that was my first game up there. We had some tough times up there the first few years. We found it hard to find our feet in Croke Park, but as my career progressed, we loved it. Every time we got to Croke Park, it felt like a different game. It felt like we were used to playing in Munster Championship matches in Cork or Thurles, and there could be 50,000 people, no problem. But Croke Park felt different. It did feel like the bigger stage. That it was every game you played there was knockout. So it took over as my favourite ground by far. I loved going there. I loved it. I loved driving under the tunnel. I loved the different feel of it. Even just the way you drive in and there's so much stuff going on, it really feel like this is proper, you know. So it's hard to describe it really, but loved the place. And I said to you, I had some of my worst games up there and some of my best games. It's like to play so many matches up there and playing so many big games up there as well was unreal, you know. Because every game was different for where the game was on. I suppose we were so used to playing in Thurles. There was nothing to us really. We'd drive up that morning. We'd go to there's a priest training college in Thurles. Justin McCarthy brought us in there every time before the game. Could be thousands out in the square. You wouldn't even hear them, and you're walking around. You'd have a stroll around. You get yourself focused and through the square over to Thurles. And back then the square used to be absolutely packed. It'd be heaving. It'd be like going to I think I said it before, it was like going to a Galatasaray versus like stick this over in Turkey. It was like a real derby. Any of them derbies you see on telly, it was crazy like in some of the matches. But as a Croke Park up, it took us a while to get probably our preparation right for Croke Park as well. It chopped and changed for a couple of years. Remember '98, we stayed in the Berkeley Hotel. We stayed before the Galway game. We stayed for the Kenny semi-final. The next morning we went. In 2002, we stayed in the City West. A lot of lads felt they were probably didn't sleep as good in a hotel. We found it hard to get the balance right. 2004, before the Ireland semi-final, we were meant to fly up from Waterford. It took a half hour, but the weather was shocking. So the flight was cancelled on the Sunday morning. We had to get the train up, and little things like that. We probably did ourselves no favours. But from 05 maybe on, we used to stay out and we'd go up that morning by the train and stay in the Clontarf Castle Hotel, just out in Clontarf. And for the next 4 or 5 years, not longer, every game in Croke Park we went there. And I think we played our best hurling when we stopped messing around with certain things. And that was it. We got the train up from Waterford. We all met down in Waterford City, train up out to Clontarf, small few words, bit of grub, take our time, not knowing, getting too excited, into Croke Park, then and this is where probably Croke Park is different. You have the dressing room, you have the warm-up area. The dressing rooms are so big, you have your own little area, and I always went to a certain spot like everyone did. But the warm-up area is where he said you go in there and you're going to go, right, this is there's a knockout championship game happening out here in a half hour or whatever. So it was a different feeling in Croke Park, and to be in there. And I said to you, it took us probably 4 or 5 years, but in saying that, it was probably only 4 or 5 games because we were going once a year and getting knocked out, you know. So it did probably take us to 05 to get to the feel of this place and get comfortable with it, because, as I said, it's a different feel up there. The pitch is even different. Even scoring into the Head 16 end is different to scoring into Canal end, because you'll always feel you'll reach the Canal end because the stand is so close to you. You'll feel you could reach that 100 metres out. And back then, so often there were so many balls dropping short when you're scoring into the Canal end because you always felt you could reach it for some reason. And there was a lot more space up the Hill 16 end. So there's little things that you got to grips with. But I said to you, for a good few years we got things fairly right up there. We go to the same spots in the dressing rooms, the same fellas getting excited, the same fellas being calm, and into the warm-up area then where we are getting really focused and out to the pitch. And the noise out in Croke Park reverberates around the stands. It's the atmosphere is electric, and especially with the decent crowds at it back then and big crowds, the atmosphere was brilliant. And as I said to you, it took us a while to get it, but we loved it. We loved it then, you know. I always think back to the Waterford team. I nearly think of the 02 to 07, 08 team. They were the same gang of lads nearly there for years. And we were a very close bunch. We were training very hard. I know the training now has gone to a different level again, and the strength and conditioning. But we were training at that time as hard as anybody as well, you know. So we were very together. No, we were every game we felt we had a chance of winning. And nearly all them games, bar probably the 08 All-Ireland, we had a chance of winning every single championship game we played in for 7 or 8 years, which is fair going. We only got one bad beating really. But no, it was really fellas knew their jobs, and I suppose a lot of them were experienced at the time. So probably excitement really more than that. You couldn't wait to get on that pitch, because look, back then you play a game, it could be 4 weeks, and a lot of the Croke Park games were probably after playing in the Munster final or whatever. You could have we had 6-week gaps at times, which were that did affect us a couple of times as well. A 6-week gap, it's you have to kind of come down a bit in training and then go back up. It's like a really mini pre-season. And I think it's very hard for teams when that don't happen anymore now, the way the championship was structured. And I think the way the championship was structured there would have suited us at the time, because to try and balance that 6 weeks was tough. But the dressing room was good. Whoever wanted their time on their own had their time on their own, and whoever you thought needed a bit of a pick me up or get going, that was done as well. But we got to know each other, how people were getting excited, you're getting excited. And there was always a good atmosphere in the dressing room, and always built up that, you know, you're playing, look, you're going out the pitch, that you're testing yourself. That's what I love. I love testing yourself in a knockout match, because that's what got you excited, especially as your career went on. It wasn't the league games got you excited. The league games got you fit. The knockout games is where you had to test yourself against the best lads, and I think all the lads enjoyed that side of it, you know. So no, great dressing room, brilliant crack, great lads to train. As I said, we went on great trips around the world and that as well. And after the matches back then, you're allowed to have a few drinks, and we used to take that option really every time as well, you know. So no, we'd some laughing. I wouldn't change a lot of stuff we done, you know. I always trained hard, but if I was injury free, and for a lot of that middle period I would have just been confident looking forward to the game. Probably focus on who I was marking. If I was centre forward, I tried to look at a lot of stuff was on my own game and what I needed to do, and centre back would have been on who I was probably marking to a point. But I really kind of focused on what I had to do, you know, and I always felt if I hurled well, I'll get on top of who I was marking, whether it be a back or a centre forward. So just got myself right, and I would have trained. I love to train hard the week of a game, and if I know myself, majority of times going out that Sunday morning, how I was going to go, give or take 1 or 2 games where it could happen. You kind of go, where did that performance come from? And you could be dead, or it never got going. But the majority of times, I know things were going okay, and I would have been happy enough, you know. But no, I would have always doing things right leading up to it. I would look after myself for that summer, obviously, and I would have trained the best I could. And once I had that done, I was happy in myself going out there. But look, back then, it was one-on-one hurling. If a fella got a better, yeah, that was it. So you had to try and mark a man first, especially as a back. And I suppose that's where the bit of pressure was. Like, now you've a bit of cover. There's not as much individual battles going on, but back then you was every individual battle, and that was it. Even before a game, you could pinpoint who was marking who. Or now it's so hard to do that. So you have to be on your toes. You have to be on your toes, you know. So which was enjoyable. Which kept you right. If you slackened off there at all centre back, and the space behind you, the forward was gone. We're now there's so much cover and so many different running, different angles and stuff, you know. You could block out that threat, but if you made a mistake back then, it was there was a nice bit of pressure on you. But that's what I enjoyed. I suppose you're waiting to get out on the pitch, you're just waiting to get out and just sample. You're being built up all, say, the few weeks or the few days or whatever, and especially that weekend, and you're just excited to get out on the pitch and just even hear the noise of the crowd, just to kind of get you not focused, but get you into that. That's it. Now you're out on the pitch now, because a lot of the back then, I suppose, you're waiting just for the day, and like, you know, it was all about just getting out on that pitch. And I felt, no, as your career went on, as you got more experience, you were able to deal a lot better with just if the day was going slow, it was going slow. It didn't bother you, or if there was no problem. That was it. But in that dressing room at that last 5, say 20, 30 seconds, is just get out on that pitch and tear out on it. And back then, I suppose every team just tore out on the pitch like mad lunatics, and you just probably drive a ball anywhere. You might put it into the stand or over the bar, wherever you put it, you just hit it, and that was it. Then majority of times you're settling down, you're back into your warm up then, and but no, you couldn't wait to get out, and it was probably excitement, and that's where. If I touched on early on some of your worst days, the other final 08, we were probably overexcited. And I suppose people say we were nervous. I don't think we were nervous. I think we were overexcited, and that's what happened this that day. We were building our whole careers up for it, and we were so excited to get out that pitch for our final day. We were after expending all our energy, probably leading up to it, But that's all I felt in that dressing room. It was the eagerness to get out and couldn't wait just to have a go off it, So I said I came along in the 90s and watched my father play for years, and we were a million miles away from playing in Croke Park and playing in big games, So it's for where we got there was brilliant. Unfortunately, we just didn't go that extra tiny bit, 98 was probably a breakthrough year for us. We got the Ireland semi-final, got to a league final. We lost both of them. Cork beat us in the league final, Kilkenny by a point in the semi-final. Again, we had enough chances. I think I had 6 or 7 wides myself that day. We had enough chances to get to a final, and then we were on a bit of a lull for a couple of years, and the team, we didn't know. We were 11 points up against Limerick in 2001. They came back and beat us in a knockout in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and we were doing silly stuff and we weren't really progressing. And 2002, Justin came in and changed an awful lot with us, and he was a massive influence on our careers. And looking back on it, I say outside of my father, he would have been the biggest influence on my career. Justin McCarthy was brilliant, and a lot of the lads would say the same. And we just started to keep concentrating more on hurling, and we get fit probably through our hurling, and we just hurled, and the league didn't go too well for us, but the Munster Championship, we got a good win against Cork in the Munster semi-final, and we did against Ireland champions against Tip in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and we played brilliant. And it was after 39 years that no one had probably expected it, bar us. We expected to win. We went through the tip team on that Thursday. We were very confident. We felt we were going well. But it was like a mini All-Ireland for us, I suppose, winning a Munster Championship back then. Like 39 years is a massive amount of time. And I think with probably 5 or 6 minutes to go, the game was well up and we were able to enjoy it. And I think we scored 223, 224 back then, which is fair scoring back in the 2000s, And it was just a massive outpouring of relief from us, and just an outpouring of kind of emotion and joy that we won it. And looking back, it was unbelievable, because I was 24, I think, and at times you thought, would this ever happen, So it was brilliant to see everyone really enjoy it, and little did we know that we'd be involved in so many games even for the next 10 years. But that was special because it was our first one. But probably the 04 Munster final was probably the best. We were probably more seasoned team after losing the 03 Munster final to Cork, and there was a fair rivalry built up at that stage. And the 04 Munster final was 100 miles an hour from the very start, and it was a brilliant game. Looking back on it now, it's probably rawer than the games are now. There's probably more mistakes in it, but back then it was a top class game, because, as I said early on, if you made a mistake, you were punished, and that game was just super. And to beat Cork in Thurles in the Munster final, I think there was 56,000 or something at it. It was jammed to the rafters, and after what Cork done to us probably over for years, Cork were beating Waterford and hammered us in 82 and 83 and them type of stuff. And they finally get one over on Cork, who would be for us growing up, would be the lads we always looked over to, of wanting to try and catch or come near, or might even catch. So to beat them in the Munster final, and I was captain that day, it was unbelievable, Yeah, 02 was our first Munster final, obviously our first win. 04 we won a second one. We lost the semi-final to Cork by a point in 06. Donald Cusack stopped a ball over the bar. He had a free the last puck of the game, and he stopped it going over. If you'd Hawkeye now, back then you never know, they could have seen it was a point or not. But so we were constantly knocking on the door without getting through it or over in semi-finals. We were getting closer and closer. With 06, we went to New York actually in December on a trip, and it was just before Christmas, and we had a right crack in New York. There was a team kind of just the lads only, and we were so what you do in New York, only sit in pubs every day, and but we end up just chatting. A lot of the time we're chatting about what we're going to do and just about Jesus, right. And I remember coming back in from New York after having a brilliant crack. Don't get me wrong, but I remember saying we couldn't wait for the following year, you know. And we tore into 07, and we trained very. We probably never trained as hard. We got to a league final. We played, but we lucky scraped a quarter-final win against Tip up in Nolan Park. We had a decent win against Cork, and we played okay against Kilkenny in the final. But we beat Kilkenny in the national final, which was huge for us. Like they're our neighbours, obviously. They're the best team. So for us to beat them was huge. And we had our first training camp in Portugal, with a week's training camp over in Villamora over in Portugal, and we were really, really geared up, and we kind of got through a Munster championship fairly okay. The problem was we drew a Cork in an Ireland quarter final up in Cork, or up in Croke Park, sorry. We bet them fairly well in a replay, and Limerick bet us the following week. And to be honest with you, after all the losses and all the defeats, that was the hardest to take. Now Limerick deserved it. Limerick tore into us. They had a good plan. They just really went at it, and they were relentless. They went for goals. We fought back a couple of times in the game. We got back to a point, I think, twice, I think, in the second half, but we just couldn't. The legs weren't there as they were probably. It was the third week in a row, and I think it did affect us. But it was probably the hardest. I felt we were the team was at its best. Probably together 6, 7, 8 years. We were experienced. We were moving well, and it was definitely the hardest. It was the hard. Every All-Ireland weekend was hard back then. I'll be honest. Watching the Ireland build up for the Fridays and the Saturdays and the Sundays back then, for all that period, was very hard. But that 07 one was probably the hardest, you know. But look, it was to me probably it was that team Mo 2 to 07, 08 was probably at its best, and in a short space of time, we 07 losing Limerick in 07 semi-final probably killed us at times, and we 08 we struggled through it, and obviously there was upheaval with Justin. Davy came in. The whole season was kind of all over the place. Now we got a good run in the summer. Obviously we bet Tip in Ireland semi-final. Probably ambushed Tip a small bit. We went, I think, 7 or 8 points to no score up, and we hung in there, and we went Ireland semi-final. Probably were a few weeks before that we were all over the place. So it was an unbelievable feeling to get to a final. I remember, I think I was rolling on the ground with Tony Brown. We were, after all the years playing, 13, 14, 15 years, couldn't believe it. But I'm sure the Kilkenny lads are watching at home saying, we can't wait for these fellas. These fellas, this is their final. And we often say, looking back on it, why didn't we just walk off the pitch and shake hands? But we were so, like, for us to win Ireland semi-final was absolutely massive. And get to a final, obviously. I think it was my 7th or 8th Ireland semi-final, so it was absolutely huge. And I said it countless times since on loads of different things, that the Ireland final, I think it was probably just we left our energy and left all our focus before the game, and it was probably an experience of how to deal with the build up to a final. We didn't do it at and overly wrong, but we were playing probably the best team of all time as well. But still, we should have, and I constantly say it, myself included, we should have handled that much differently. We should have been able to deal with that, and that's the biggest regret I'd have. Not about winning in Ireland, because if you're not good enough, you're not good enough. But how we performed that day, I do feel I would have a huge regret over that still. What is it, 13 years that we just didn't perform, you know. Because I said, if we did perform, I think any bet us, you take your hat off to him and say, look, the best team for probably, in my view, ever. But we just didn't perform, and that is hard to take, you know. I think we'd all say it. You'd give up all your all-stars to win All Ireland, but they are nice to have. Don't get me wrong, and lads are lying if they say they're not a nice thing to have, because I said to my father, got nominated a few times. He never got one. He got a replacement All-Star once. He went off on a trip to LA and stuff. And we used to hear about this for years. We were like, LA and New York. We couldn't believe it, the young kids, like, you know, because we never went back in the 80s. You didn't go anywhere like that, you know. So we're looking at pictures of, they're in Disneyland and stuff. And so we were just saying, like, we'd love to ever, geez, come in directing for something like that. So look, to get 3 on was great. And remember the first one was, suppose, I kind of got left half forward, I think, or half forward. And we Friday night was up in the City West, and we were playing a Munster club final on the Sunday. So myself and Tony were up there. And got an all-star. Obviously, we couldn't even celebrate it because we had to go home early next morning. I remember going back, and you'd be on a high. Obviously, it was a big deal, and I'm up to Mount Sion to kind of run around a bit and hit a few balls. And it was a storm. It was like the 2nd of December or 1st of December, but just to kind of clear my head a bit to say, right, you have a huge game the next day. Now we end up, we won a Munster final the next day. We bet 6 Mile Bridge, Davy Fitz's team, and that I remember just on Monday kind of celebrating. Myself, Owen Kelly was with us at the time, and the 2 of us at All Stars, 2 of us won on Sunday. And I remember on the Monday, the club lads made a big deal of it. You know that we I remember thinking back, it was we had such a great Monday on having a few beers, all of us, at win the Munster Club final, and they were celebrating that as well because it was our first All Stars in the club since Jim Green back in the 80s. You know, so no, look, they're great to have, and it's mad that I'd have a midfield, a centre, or a wing forward, and a centre back. You know, so I think Brick Welch is the same, and Tommy Welch. 3 of us have the 3 different lines. You know, so look, it's nice. It's nice. My own kids, the older 2 would know, would have seen me playing, obviously, and would have known about that. But the younger 2, they've surely 5 and 3, well, nearly 6 and 3, so they wouldn't like. At least it'd be nice to show them that I was able to move at some stage. The trips were brilliant, you know. So just we went. I went to Argentina 1 year. First year we went. Where did we go? Las Vegas and Phoenix. Then we went to Singapore, and Dawn came with me to Singapore back in 06. That was the first 2 we all went to Rome. In 06, Dawn came with us with Dawn. We some laugh. It was brilliant. You couldn't ask for any more. We were staying in the best of hotels, the best of things. It was real Celtic Tiger stuff. So looking back now, you'd say it was. We took it for granted probably, but it was unbelievable. Because I'm 8 years now over 2014, 7 years overall. I suppose the health stuff. I suppose basically, look, at the time, I wasn't doing well for a couple of years, or probably a year or 2, and eventually found out, look, I'd a normal valve that I was born with, and that was the whole thing. And obviously, it's well documented at this stage, and open heart surgery and all that stuff. And like, there was a few years there, you'd be talking about it so much. I mean, asked to talk about it, I nearly forget about it now. It's after being so long, you know. But no, it was mad, I suppose. I said I missed the father when he was inducted to the Hall of Fame. I was in hospital at the time. And I think a few reporters were asking, where's Ken? Because it was strange, I wasn't there. And the father said, oh, jeez, I remember me telling Vincent Hogan and Martin Bretney and that he's in hospital and he's in a bit of bother kind of thing. And that was when they said it's okay to say it or whatever. And the father said, yeah, there's no problem because it was around anyway in Waterford City or the county anyway. And yeah, look, it was a mad few months. It was much harder for Dawn and the lads because she had to kind of work and come out and see me and look after the 2 younger kids weren't here at the time. But I was only in hospital, probably just really focusing on trying to, get right, if you know what I mean. And I just had to relax and wait until they were doing the operation and all that stuff. So it was a very strange few months, but between the jigs and the reels, I suppose, I was out of work for was it 8-9 months or whatever, and there was a big kind of rehabilitation in it, and an idea kicked off about him playing a match and different things going on, and John Milan, I live on the same street as John. We're here years. I think he said, we'll have to try and do something, and he started talking to a few lads around Waterford City and stuff, and they set up a committee and they came up with a game, Welsh Park, and it was an all-star challenge they call it, and I think it was Munster versus Leinster. I think there were 7,000 or 8,000 people in Welsh Park, and it was unbelievable. And support I got even before that, and that game, and after, and support from the GPA and all different clubs was unbelievable. I'd be honest, you'd be overwhelmed the whole lot. And looking back now, I don't know how I got through the few months because there were so much things happened and so much good things happened. To me, it was a good time. I wouldn't think it as a bad time at all because I was delighted they found this thing which was wrong, but the different things that went on with the match and different things, and it was unbelievable. And like you're in Welsh Park and there's lads from every club coming in from the county, and we would have a huge rivalry with all them clubs, with like De La Salle and Our Saviours and Romore and all the different Ballygunner, but every one of them supported it, and it was unbelievable, you know. So you'd be forever grateful for it, and it was really, I suppose, after that, myself and Dawn, especially, we felt that it was like a new start for, I suppose, our life, really, you know. So it was, it was unbelievable, and you never forget that. You never forget and you can only say thanks so much as well. You can, like, you know, and at the time I would have been overwhelmed definitely with what went on, and I would have loved it if it was for somebody else. I could have enjoyed that night, and because Mount Zion put on an unbelievable kind of a thing up there with music, and they had kind of like a Sunday game type thing with all the different players, and there was players from all over the country came down, and it was unbelievable, you know. Most memorable games, probably the 04 Munster final was probably one of the most memorable games, I suppose, for the drama that was in it. At the time, it was probably one of the best games for years. There was so much in it. There was so much different characters on both teams. You had Brian Corcoran up full forward, his first year back up full forward. You had Sean Og, you had Joe Dean, you had his class Cork team, and I suppose the characters we had, Dan, Tony, Milan, Paul Flynn, you know. So it was an unbelievable game. I suppose in the Munster Championship, that would be probably my most memorable game, or even one of my most favourite games. And I suppose Croke Park, if I think of Croke Park, I said we had some very, very hard games up there. But then we had some brilliant games up there as well, you know. And we played some super hurling. We bet Tip in 06 in the quarter final. We were brilliant. We bet Cork, and the following year in the quarter final we were brilliant again. Two of them games were actually class, and we played the first game. I think there were 70 or 80,000 at it, because there was a double header. I think Kerry played another day against Monaghan. Actually, we were playing Kerry, and like the games were massive, and there were just brilliant matches, you know. So yeah, looking back, I suppose the first two Munster final wins were huge, and the atmosphere around them, the atmosphere on the pitch was unbelievable. And I suppose if I had to pick one game, I'd probably say 04 Munster final. And yet probably the breakthrough game for the whole county really was 98. We bet Tip in a knockout game up in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. And no, we got to a league final that year, but no one really thought we'd push on maybe for championship, bar us. And we bet Tip, and it was a breakthrough game for us, because we were, I suppose, nowhere near that at the time. We're building up to it, but that was the first time getting to Munster final and kind of experiencing a bit of the big time, you know. So that really kickstarted things, and that was probably one of the biggest games we won as well, you know. I suppose, look, you have to enjoy it, and that's where. And I know that might sound a bit silly, but I loved training. I loved going down training. I love keeping myself right, trying to keep fit. Love testing myself against the players, and that's where always trying to improve. And look, I know it's hard nowadays with social media. There's young kids, 17, 16, 17, being judged and being judged off different players, and being, I see the next this or the next that. I suppose when we grew up, we were allowed just kind of gradually get better at your own time. Even now, I suppose, two bad performances now, and they're being criticised so much, and it's not an easy time to really start out. Social media have a lot to play in that, good and bad as well now, I suppose, you know. But no, just I suppose as a hurler, I always trained hard. I always trained like I wanted to try and play, and that worked for me. Just constantly trying to get the basic skills right, and if you get the basic stuff right without thinking, the other stuff will come naturally. Obviously, the strength and conditioning now was so far ahead where we are. Obviously, take a voice and all that stuff, nutrition and all that, because that kind of thing was only kicking in really in, I suppose, the early to mid 2000s, and we jumped on it a bit as well, and it did work for us. But we didn't get overburdened with it either. It was the size of the game, I suppose, back then. But look, hurling, you have to do it so naturally. Nearly, you have to really be doing it so much that, like, I think now of catching a ball and I probably trip up or kill myself. For back then, you do it so naturally because you've done so much and so repetitively, you know. So just constant practice, constant playing. But do enjoy it, try and enjoy it, because it goes like a click of a finger, and 7 or 8 years could be gone. But the other thing I'd say would be express yourself when you play, because we're all different characters in how we play the game, and I like to see that as well. And I think some of it, like, it's what you see with the Limerick lads now. There's a bit of character to them. They're all a bit different, and that's why I'd have huge time for that. This Limerick team coming through. Obviously they've 2 All-Irelands, but there's different characters and different lines of the pitch that will try different things, and will back themselves up. So don't be afraid. If you are a bit different, don't be trying to curtail that too much either. We have that ourselves in Austin Gleeson. He's liable to do anything, which is brilliant. He'd excite you. He's obviously my own club as well. So yeah, I love to see that. I love to see something a bit different as well, you know. The other highlight, I suppose, would be just getting that Waterford team and getting our county up to a certain level where we were so competitive in the Munster and Ireland Championships. Because, as I say, like, my father played for, I think, 15 years, and they won 3 months championship matches, you know. So we played in so many big games with such a crowd there, and we helped progress the game in the county that to a level now we're in the question or the answer for an Ireland every year, you know. So I think that's probably. Look, obviously we didn't win All Ireland. It'd be a huge regret of us, but to get Waterford hurling up to that level, and it's not just obviously me, it was that team I played on. I'd have great time for that team of the 2000s. There's very little things I change, because we had a brilliant time. We played some of the best hurling at the time, seen for years. We didn't win All Ireland, but that was our own fault, because we got enough of them. We just didn't get over the line. So we can have no complaints, really, you know.